Hey guys, welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. Hoping 2023 is going well for everyone so far. So, now that version 3 is well underway and the Dendro element has been thoroughly researched, as a follow-up of sorts to the top 5 strongest teams video I made last month, I wanted to make an updated list on the top 10 best characters that everyone should have or at least aim for depending on what your situation is. Obviously, for players who are brand new to the game or haven't been playing for a long time, I understand it's not realistic to expect you to have all these units, but if you are one of those people, I suggest you take this video as a guideline on which characters you should devote your resources to if and when you come across them and manage to get your hands on them. Bear in mind, since we're going through 10 characters instead of the usual 5, the segments for each unit will be shorter than usual, but if you're interested in learning more about any of them, I left a few references in the video description. With that done, let's get started with the honorable mentions. It should come to no one's surprise that Genshin has a lot of powerful characters, each with their own unique purposes and niche that can perform at or even above the same level as anyone on the main list. But to keep things a bit more streamlined, I came to the conclusion that the honorable mentions, while very powerful, are not as multi-purpose. Either way, if you have the means and wherewithal to attain them, then you should very much do so. Fischl is a long-standing veteran of Genshin. As one of the game's first characters way back in version 1, she was a stable choice for many players as we navigated through the early game and its limited selection. While in the beginning, she more or less served as an on-field auto attacker, Fischl has quickly and seamlessly transitioned into the role of an off-field damage dealer. Thanks to her elemental skill and burst making use of her trusty familiar Oz, Fischl has, to my knowledge, the highest electro application in the game, thus making her a prime candidate for any reaction-focused team composition like Taser, Catalyze, also known as Quicken, and Soup, though her DPS uptime is nothing short of extraordinary considering her 4-star rank. The advent of Dendro further necessitates an electro spammer, so you'll find plenty of use for her, that is, if you're intent on going electro-focused comps. On the subject of being a long-standing veteran, arguably the oldest playable character in the game according to canonical age, Zhongli is someone that I don't think anyone really considers tier 0 anymore, but is still a worthwhile mention. He really has only one main job, shield, but his shield is so absurdly broken that he's developed a reputation for playing Minecraft on peaceful mode or Terraria on journey mode. Absolutely zero challenge to any boss or dungeon whatsoever, at least any boss or dungeon that doesn't inflict corrosion. Alongside that, he comes equipped with a few offensive perks like shredding nearby enemy resistance to all forms of damage while the shield holds and a massive meteor strike that stuns anyone caught in it. Optimally speaking, he's not the best choice as you pay a serious DPS cut to bring him along, but if we're talking about maximum comfiness, look no further than this guy. Provided you're still making some attempts to avoid enemy attacks, whether by dodging or iframing through burst animations, Zhongli can refresh the Jade Shield before the previous one breaks, making your team basically invincible. Speaking of being a specialist, you might be wondering why I put Yelan in as an honorable mention and not a main cast member, seeing as how I gassed her up to everyone a couple weeks ago. To reiterate, I am prioritizing units that I believe will cover the most bases for every player, and though I personally find myself using Yelan more than Xingqiu, at the end of the day, she's very top-heavy, hyper-damage oriented, and doesn't offer the same flexible utility as her 4-star counterpart, who's not only more accessible but easier to use. As for why I elected to not put both of them, I didn't want one element to cover too many spots, since once again we're trying to cover as many bases as possible. Even so, I still stand by the sentiment that when Yelan's banner has a rerun, if you have the Primos to spare, definitely go after her. One of the best Hydro units in the game and will be for a long time. Okay, with the honorable mentions out of the way, let's finally go through the top 10 characters everyone should have. This will be in no particular order, and to repeat, I'll be going through every unit briefly, so if you want more information on them, feel free to check the description down below. Beginning with easily one of the best 5-star characters in Genshin, if not the absolute best, since the day it came out, and likely for a long time to come, we have Kazuha. Kazuha has been touted by many as the true Anemo Archon, since even though he's not explicitly better than Venti, Kazuha exemplifies everything that makes Anemo the most broken element in the game. As one of the game's first hyperscalers, Kazuha can allocate all of his resources into Elemental Mastery, a stat that famously synergizes with Anemo's premier reaction, Swirl. Not only does this mean he deals a ton of damage without having to itemize any other stat, but he converts a portion of his elemental mastery into an unconditional bonus elemental damage buff for his entire team whenever triggering a swirl reaction, something he does without even trying. His fluid mechanics, great synergy, and surprisingly high damage makes him a character you'll be squeezing into virtually any team composition you can think of. But to be honest, even though his combat support is what everyone knows him for, I personally enjoy his mobility more than anything else. It may not seem like a big deal, but trust me when I say that upwards boost helps out so much, and you can even use it while gliding to extend your verticality, something Venti can't do. Definitely deserving of a spot on this list. Next, we have Bennett. This was a no-brainer. While I find myself using him less these days, Bennett still holds the honor of being, with no caveat, no asterisk, the cheapest character in the game to optimize for a multitude of reasons. To start, he requires only one constellation to be considered fully ready, as the rest of his constellations are merely quality of life enhancements, while the other 4 stars usually demand C4 or even C6 to be effective. The only thing you need to best and slot him is a high attack weapon and level 90. That's it. Your artifacts can honestly be whatever the hell you want. Energy recharge is of course never a bad option, but you really don't need elemental mastery, crit rate, crit damage, or even percent attack because he only scales off base attack, which you can only get through your weapon and level. Even so, the sheer offensive and defensive support he provides through one single ability can nearly double the efficiency of his other 3 party members, turning a team of 4 into pretty much a team of 6. There's a vocal minority who find him very unappealing to use, but no one can deny how efficient this guy is. Lots of bonus attack, lots of regeneration, and such a low investment floor for the amount of benefit. Let's go over yet another 4-star character that you've no doubt heard a lot about, Xingqiu. If Kazuo is the strongest 5-star in Genshin, then Xingqiu is most certainly the strongest 4-star, a statement I have half a mind to consider a fact now that we have Hyperbloom. It does cost a bit more to get Xingqiu to that endgame status, but it's still a solid margin below a 5-star, yet he can do so much more than like the majority of them. Unlike Bennett, who specializes in 2 straightforward albeit essential things, Xingqiu offers a bit of everything. His rain swords grant a myriad of defensive support like damage reduction, token healing, and super armor in tandem with offensive support in the form of follow-up Hydra damage, allowing him to supplement his main DPS with off-field Hydra application that echoes their normal attacks. Hydra is a complementary element to many of the game's best reactions like Freeze, Electrocharge, and Vaporize to name a few, and Xingqiu's Hydra application has the easiest activation clause possible, left click. The damage isn't half bad either. Provided he has good artifacts, he can do quite a bit of DPS himself. Like Kazuha, you'll find Xingqiu harmoniously fitting into many team compositions because just about all the game's best mandate the presence of at least one Hydra unit. Speaking of Hydra, Kokomi is next on our list. Over the past year, her once terrible reputation has turned a complete 180 to where she's now one of the best units in the game. Kokomi's win conditions are almost identical to Xingqiu in terms of Hydra application and being hands-off, but she provides way more sustenance for her party at the expense of super armor. Furthermore, she can provide better longevity for your party while taking care of Hydra reactions, whereas Xingqiu's only real weakness is that you still need a healer to pair with them. Regarding DPS, if you tailor her build to do that, she can actually be a decent battle healer and is often used as an on-field driver for taser teams. What really edges her out over someone like Yelan, who I would have put in place of Kokomi, is that she's amazing for Hyperbloom teams, giving her just a bit more synergy and support. Then again, all 3 of them are top tier. Kokomi is mostly a worthwhile alternative if you feel like turning your brain off and autopiloting through the game. I've yet to see a single instance where enemies deal more damage than she can recover, especially when she uses her elemental burst. It's nigh impossible to suffer any casualties under her watch. The new star con to grace us with her presence is Nahida, the elder statesman of the new Dendro element. Like her counterparts, she wasted no time demonstrating how effective she is in teams where Dendro is used and is the newest tier 0 unit in the game, single-handedly elevating Catalyze and Hyperbloom parties to top meta status through her incredible hybrid scaling, elemental mastery buff in the same fashion as Sucrose, permanent uptime on her skill and burst, and consistent Dendro application. Despite being a tier 0 unit, however, in my humble opinion, Dendro is still a very specialized element. As of writing this script, there's only 4 playable Dendro characters, with I'll hate them joining us in the near future, if not by the time you see this, as the 5th one. Its roster is not as extensive as that of Hydro, Electro, or Cryo. Despite saying all that, Nahida buffs the potency of Dendro to such an extreme that if you have the right team composition and good equipment, everything around you will explode. Literally. That goes to show you how absurd she is. The only thing that made Dendro teams a bit awkward to use prior to her is that Tignati, Kale, and DMC could not keep up with the speed of application of the other elements. Nahida doesn't have this issue, and we get to see firsthand exactly why that's overpowered. We've gone through quite a few support characters, so I think we should take a moment to highlight some of Genshin's premier on-field damage dealers. Hu Tao is one of them. She is brute force personified, a tanky bruiser who converts a portion of her maximum health into attack. She easily becomes one of the strongest attackers in the game. Technically, Noelle and Ito overshadow her in terms of attack power, but what she has that they don't is reactions. Vaporize and Melt can multiply her already insane numbers to go even higher, and thanks to her elemental burst consisting of a single hit screen nuke, proper timing can lead to Spirit Soother dealing well over 200,000 to 300,000 damage. Her consistent damage is also quite good, though to really maximize it, Constellation 1 is recommended. I will say that a leading contributor to why Hu Tao is still such a boss is because of Xingqiu and Yelan. Double Vaporize is super easy to pull off, and Hu Tao makes the best use of the follow-up Hydra damage. Were it not for Yelan, I actually think Hu Tao would have fallen off a bit at this point. However, people enjoy using her because, like everyone else we talked about so far, she's not only strong but also very easy to use, and can operate at a reasonable level with or without a team built around her. The next one is someone I deeply regretted not adding in the top 5 supports video way back, but I'm not forgetting her this time. Sucrose is a criminally underrated character. Make no mistake, Prevailing Wisdom ranks her as a solid A tier character, so by no means do players call her bad. But there's a sizable number of proponents who argue she can realistically go toe-to-toe with Kazuha in both damage augmentation and reaction-centric comps. I think the reason her rating is so divisive is due to the fact that she's prone to mistiming her abilities. Kazuha suffers from this to some extent, but it's way more pronounced for Sucrose. You need to understand your team's rotation sequence to make the most use out of her. But once you do, what you have is basically a 4-star Kazuha, and with Kazuha being absurdly broken, being a slight downgrade is still broken. Sucrose has equal, if not better crowd control, just as good animal application, and champions the best taser party in the game to this day. You've likely heard of the holy trio of 4 stars consisting of Bennett, Xingqiu, and Xiangling, but really it should be the quartet of 4 stars. Sucrose deserves a spot, even if she may be a bit more arduous to use. For those that don't have Kazuha, Sucrose can fill that void rather competently. 3 more to go, so let's keep things going. We have Raiden Shogun. I like to describe Shogun as a reverse Bennett. Bennett's power stems from his ability to significantly magnify the rest of his team's DPS in exchange for sacrificing his own. Shogun's power stems from her ability to draw on the strength of the rest of her team to maximize her own damage. By using their elemental bursts, it increases the damage of her own, and to further incentivize that win condition, her elemental skill increases the damage of all elemental bursts in her party. So she's not entirely selfish. Through usage of her burst, she accelerates the recharge rate of her entire team, thus allowing her to return the favor, ultimately creating a fully self-sustaining rotation where her party members use their burst, then she uses hers, and repeats the cycle again and again. Raiden National became one of the first widely adopted team compositions for how efficient and consistent it was in dealing lots of damage in a short period of time, making it great for dungeons like Spiral Abyss. Aside from that, Shogun's playstyle is reminiscent of Sucrose in that by powering up the rest of her team, they in turn power up her. This allows Shogun to moonlight as a support or secondary DPS for more niche compositions without trading efficiency as a hyper carry, although my god does she take a lot of investment. We got one more on-field damage dealer to talk about, and it's gonna be one of Genshin's most beloved characters, Ayaka. Ayaka's an interesting case. She doesn't carry the same raw power as Wu Tao, nor does she harness the strength of her team like Shogun. What she does, however, is exploit freeze, a reaction that stops opponents from moving or attacking and can be chain sequenced provided you can outspeed the internal cooldown. The cryo element has yet to feature a catalyst user, making Ayaka the only unit out of the entire roster with permanent cryo application. With her elemental burst dealing its damage through rapid hits, she can stun lock all enemies who are susceptible to being so. That saves you the trouble of having to keep everyone together, as well as the trouble of protecting herself against counterattack, thus allowing her team to go full on damage and abuse the fact that you can pretty much do whatever the hell you want. Though that's not to say she doesn't deal her fair share of damage, cause no, she certainly can. It does suck that aside from reverse melt, cryo is not really known for doing that much damage through either amplification or reactions. Fortunately for Ayaka though, she doesn't really need it. Cryo features a plethora of members with innate cryo damage bonuses, and Ayaka has fantastic base damage, so in a way her strength is less about numbers and more about lasting pressure. If she was any other element besides cryo, she wouldn't be nearly as good. Last but not least, we have Xiangling. This might sound kind of weird, but virtually all of Xiangling's success is a result of an unintended consequence of a mechanic attached to her elemental burst, Snapshot. Or rather I should say, her elemental burst was intended to snapshot, but I don't think MiHoYo was fully aware of just how overpowered that would be. Snapshotting, for those that don't know, is a term used to describe an attack's damage being calculated based on the circumstances in when it was first used and maintaining that calculation throughout the duration. In other words, any bonuses that she had when casting Pyronado persist even if the buff itself wears off or she switches out. So you can stack all kinds of steroids on her, like Kazuha's elemental damage amp, Bennett's attack buff, Shogun's burst amp, all that good stuff, and Pyronado will keep all of that for the entire duration, taking an attack that does give or take around 20% in total to well over 8,000%, maybe even 10,000. It's absurd how artificially powerful Xiangling can become. I don't know how much I should weigh the benefits of external support when evaluating a character, but for Xiangling, she's defined by it. She does so much damage for all the wrong reasons that it's almost comical how she's become one of the best characters in the game. There's actually a recurring meme about Xiangling where every new piece of content is an indirect buff to her because she somehow finds a way to make it work on her. Alrighty, there you have it. Just to repeat, I tried to make this list as general as possible. Obviously, there are a ton of characters I didn't mention who could have easily taken a spot, like Zhongli, Ganyu, Venti, Child, and such. But I was looking at this from the perspective of someone thinking what would be the best use of their primos and money. Which characters are the most efficient, cost-effective, versatile, and future-proof? As usual, you're allowed to play whoever you see fit. I like to think of this video as a reference for whenever someone asks me what units I would recommend they go for. But anyways, hope this was insightful to those who needed it and entertaining to those who wanted it. It would be awesome if you could leave a like and subscribe to my channel, really helps me out. Also consider following me on Twitter at Vars, joining my Discord server, and if you want something else to check out, why not take a look at my top 5 strongest teams video if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon in the next one. Take care.